Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all. My name is Zoe Razbash. I'm part of the studio team here. I'm a climate action researcher, and I'm here with Marcus and Zaina from the Apothecary Network and Joe from Cryptship. And yeah, as someone who thinks and works around climate justice a lot, I think something for me is that I've been kind of ignoring AI as it's been getting more like popular. I've been being like, I do not see, because it's been stressing me out. And what I've loved about watching you guys develop your work is like, and you can tell me that I'm wrong here, but I kind of think both of your teams are coming a bit from a space of like AI hater, a little bit, maybe you can call it critic. And that's why it's been really amazing to watch you guys come with this like really like critical space, but still be able to develop something really joyful, really centering care, centering resistance, centering agency. And that journey for me has been like really like affirming to watch. The way that you're kind of, both teams are able to respond to these problematic aspects of existing AI technologies, while also kind of developing prototypes which encourage conversation and challenge the ways that we use and think about AI has been really, really amazing to watch. Yeah, so I found that extremely cool, and I guess something that came out really strong in both of the videos there is how much you guys have been centering community in all of this, and like that's kind of been the values that you've been returning to, specifically with and for specific communities. So I guess it'd be really interesting to start from a place of like, hear more about how the community needs guided the direction of the development of this work. Either one of you guys feel like going first?
Okay, I'll go. Thank you. Yeah, so first thing we said when we got funding for the project was that like we wanted to be a community-driven project. We wanted to centre the people that we're working with, black, brown, diaspora, indigenous people and their knowledge. And so when we applied for funding, we kind of said that like, we're going to hold community workshops. And if we do those community workshops and everyone's like, we hate AI, then we just won't deliver an AI project. And like we said, that was like part of the risk with funding us. And that's basically what happened. And so we did like a series of community workshops, and we sort of like sat down with a wide range of people from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life. Some people were growers and interested in plants. Some people were sort of like elderly. Some people were in their teens. Some people just turned up because we were paying people to attend, and they didn't have any clue what they were doing. But they were all sort of like people of colour, and they were all sort of like engaging in this. And we asked them about how they felt about AI, how they felt about nature, about green spaces. And broadly speaking, like people just sort of like, it seems really interesting. It seems like it could be kind of exciting, but it's being controlled by massive corporations under a system of capitalism and white supremacy and colonialism. And I don't really understand how it's not going to be used for anything other than furthering those existing systems. So relatively late in the day, like I don't know if other people came to the playtest, but you might have noticed we weren't absent. So like about a week before the playtest was supposed to happen, we decided to change our project to kind of like take on board that feedback from people and try to be something that like responds. Like we try to value like and adhere to the design justice principles, and one of those is that like we respond to the communities, we don't dictate to our communities, and so we try to adapt our project and respond to what our community had kind of told us, which I think broadly we had already felt, and then that's essentially that AI is actually pretty shit.
Zaina, do you want to add anything?
It's funny because I'm the one person on the team who doesn't like totally hate AI. So I was the one kind of saying, I think there's a lot of ethical issues, but I think as well that we can create something that is so community-led that it's ethical because we're not using data that's been sort of harvested in a really extractive way. So like we said, we've compensated everyone who came to our workshops. We focused a lot on getting, I think, really candid opinions on AI, and then we use that to eventually inform what we made, which was something that's using AI but in a really minimalistic way.
And Joe?
Yeah. So I guess AI is affecting disabled people's lives now, even if it's relatively new technology, because when systems don't work or don't provide you with information, especially if you put an AI in front of it, you're immediately rejected and marginalized. So in working with disabled participants and non-disabled people, we've been, I guess, initially we were just like, let's break it. And that was really depressing and really sad. And everyone was like, yeah, society is marginalizing disability. And surprisingly, AI and large language models are also marginalizing disability. There was nothing new there. So what we started to do, I guess, was in building a game, it was built through community, through disabled experiences. We didn't really know what our game was. And we came to people and said, hey, like, make a character in our game. And they were like, okay, I want to be an animatronic bee with crutches. You're like, cool, okay. You've just helped invent this world that we didn't really know existed. So anyone who came to the game made the world. So it's a community-built exercise. I think it's also worth saying that as integral to the project, the team, the players, the community, is the idea of temporal accessibility, as in everyone we worked with, we were like, this is our deadline for a showcase. Please just contribute what you can, like in any way, in any communication method that works for you, within the time frame that works for you, within your own comfort. And so we've been like, WhatsApp voice messages, like emails, conversations, just anything to just make sure that we provide that space within time, and then that manifests itself inside the game, because the game also expresses that feeling. So yeah, it's a core part of our design ethos, and it's present in the game as well.
It's really interesting, and I respect both of your guys' process so much, because when you invite in all of these voices, which is necessary to do this work, it makes it so hard. So it's amazing that you guys are here with the prototypes, even though I know there was like a turnaround midway for you guys. But you guys were talking a little bit about large language models there, and both of your prototypes stretch across kind of physical offline elements and then temporary online interaction, and interrogating foundation models in role-play setting, and then also the biomimicry of the solar-powered server. Can you kind of tell us a little bit more about these elements and how you got to them?
Yeah, sure. Very difficultly. So our game as a theme is AI, but our mechanic is conversation. So in the same way that dice provide an excuse to have a conversation, LLMs, as we see them, provide an excuse to have a conversation. No one in our games ever types in a question to any of the large language models, ever. They talk to each other and they discuss what they would want to ask. They come up with ideas. And then they, like, as a consensus, tell the storyteller, who will then type it in. So we never get trapped behind, like, entering that interaction. It's always people and conversation first. We have some kind of weird things around agency in our game, I guess, because role-playing game exists because it provides more freedom than any other medium. And so in our design of saying, hey, we want to interrogate large language models and foundation models, and then the players go, yeah, but I want to like go down an alleyway and just start exploring. And you're like, that's cool, that's fun. Like, how do we like get players to explore where we want to go? Because we're kind of trying to say something in that world of like freedom, which was really hard. And I think kind of we approached by rooting a lot in reality and trying to use like narrative and story techniques. All of our cases for players to investigate, there's definite nods to disability. You get to go and break into the Department for Work and Pensions, which I fucking love. And blow it up if you want, I won't say. And I think rooting in that is what kind of motivates people to engage with these systems in a fun but still critical way. And kind of from a story sense, it's just really satisfying, as I hope I convey.
Yeah. So when it came to our prototype, we really wanted to focus on like the concept of biomimicry, and we did this in a number of ways. So the first thing that we kind of came up with was having our bot powered by a solar panel, or rather by a Raspberry Pi connected to a solar panel, ensuring that essentially you couldn't always access our bot, even though there are sort of backup power options that we have. And then another concept that we thought about was having hubs sort of worldwide. So we were going to make a guide on how to essentially set up your own bot with instructions on programming the bot, and then also setting up a Raspberry Pi and a solar panel, ensuring that essentially you can access this by yourself, and also depending on how we sort of go in the future, you'll be able to access the bot depending on like which area or which hub has access to the most sun as well.
Yeah, like so we were like, when we decided to pivot the project, I did quite a lot of research and read a lot of things, and like I was really inspired by a Rachel Caldicott article, which is about just enough internet, like what is just enough internet to do what we wanted to do. So we tried to create something that we felt was radically small, that was like, what is just enough AI for what we want to do, what's just enough technology, what's just enough power. So we try to, our thing is like deliberately small. It's built on a solar panel. I had it running on a solar power just now. The sun went in and it's all shut down. like that's kind of by design. And we've spent a lot of time when we originally started talking about this app. It's like of this idea of like how can we mimic the natural world in how we're using technology, and like one of those options is a solar panel. And as Zaina was kind of saying, like another project we were really inspired by is called the Solar Protocol. And it's a solar-powered web server, and it's a network of solar-powered web servers. And the website, you view it on whichever solar power or server has the most sunlight at that particular time. And so right now, our web server and our web app and our AI chatbot is hosted on a single Raspberry Pi with a solar panel. But we like imagine this world where it could potentially be always available and always accessible, if our community want it to be, if they decide that they want to build a server and host it themselves, and then it can like share the data and load share that way. And it would only be there if that was like what the community wanted for it. So like, I think there's like lots of like, we're increasingly interested in this idea of like, what does the network part of the apothecary network mean? Like, and originally it was like about building like these network of like growers and people building their own decolonial like community apothecaries. But also I think it's like we're also interested in like exploring like a network of like computing, and a network of companies, and a network of technologists, and a network of creatives, and how we can also like feed that into what we're bringing together in a way that like plants build their own smart, intelligent networks.
It's really exciting. It's really exciting. And I was just making notes as you were talking, in the sense that both of these, both the game and the app and the potential future network, really rely on like collectivity and people coming together and working together. And also they're both unreliable, and like how you're kind of challenging this idea that there's, you know, the AI is always there for us and we're permanent. And there's an innate unreliability to both these projects, which I find really, really exciting. Marcus, you were kind of talking about it a little bit there, but what is something that you've learned or taken away from this R&D process, and what's the kind of next steps for your prototypes? Anyone fancy going first?
I can go, yeah, sure. I'll try and condense all my thoughts into learning and not be too wordy. So I guess in our research and in our game, we spent a long time interacting and investigating large language models. It's very clear that they are an amazing solution to the messiness of language. They give the ability for a computer to engage with natural language better than any other previous technique. But they're based on data sets which express the inequality of that data and of society. And they are building models on top of these models, using humans to try and improve the quality and effectively hide the systemic inequality by adding more biases of people. I could tell you, like, Claude gets Anthropic's Claude gets very upset if I talk about wheelchair zero-G combat, because it tells me it's not safe and I shouldn't do this. Sure, like OpenAI and ChatGPT gets very upset if I make statements like disability is joyful. it doesn't really like that statement. It believes that I should be thankful for large language models helping me from an access perspective. I could go on, but I think it's the core thing that these systems are just trying to hide the inequality that exists within society, that exists within the data set. They will always fail. Language is messy. They're great at solving language, but humans are better at it and will always be better at it. That inequality can't be hidden. And again, I think they mentioned in the previous panel, it's transparency of the data set. If we could see what they were trained on, it would provide so much. But nobody wants to provide that, even when they refer to them as open source. The training sets are commercial secrets that nobody is allowed to know what they contain, which is very, very problematic. And I guess the only other thing I would also add is that they're not situated voices. When you speak to these large language models, it's a grinding and crushing of all these voices and lived experiences down to one voice. It would be fascinating if an LLM gave you millions of different voices, but no, it gives you one voice. It's really, if anything, situated in the companies and the people who made it and their belief systems. And again, when you ask it about disability, it can't answer these questions or gives very problematic answers because it doesn't have, it's effectively good at language, but it's not good at the experience behind that language, and that gets erased in the process. Sorry. Oh, yeah, future. Do you want me to do future as well? Yeah. I'm talking a lot. Sorry, I did the mic lean. Future, yes, quickly. What is the future? We built a book. We built a game. We want to sell it. We want to make money from that. Thank you. Yeah. And why we want to make money from that is because we want to effectively... we created this Ministry of AI Spills. Our game begins with an ending. The ministry is shutting down, and it does that. So it says to the players, what are you going to do about it? And the future of our project is living in that moment of what do people want to do about it, being a community-driven, funding community-driven research into AI, funding that through the money we make through the books, being a publisher for critical AI and disability approaches to AI, and we want to sell as many copies of this book as possible, launch it in Comic-Con, as many places, get it as many hands as possible. That's us.
Exciting.
Yeah, so we originally, when we first started doing this project, we originally started using large language models, and we were using OpenAI, and I guess as it said through this kind of, it's just they are just inherently, unchangeably, racist, ableist, colonial, it's just built into how they are created, and there's no getting around of it. And I think all of the teams were trying to navigate the ethics around it. And I think, broadly speaking, a lot of us kind of felt that we recognise that, but maybe the good is kind of the work that we're doing here. And I think that's really, I don't disagree with that. I think it's a really valid point, but I just don't think that really cuts the mustard for our project, which has explicitly stated we are decolonial, explicitly stated we are anti-racist, explicitly stated we are concerned with climate justice. So what we did was we've created a tiny chatbot to do specifically what we want, which is essentially to process people's emotions. Oh, I'm feeling under the weather, and it says, oh, we think that sounds like you're feeling sad. And it does that and only that, and it doesn't do that particularly well, to be honest, because it's not a large language model in the same way that other people's are. And for this prototyping period, what it's done is we use existing libraries to create it. So it's we know exactly where the data's come from. We can explore the data sets, who used it, how to use it to create these large language models. We tried to find ones that were far more transparent than existing large language models, that were did a very hyper-specific thing, and that's it. If you start asking other questions, it will just tell you. If you say how are you feeling today, or what is the color blue, it will just go oh, it sounds like you're feeling sad today, and it won't really understand what you're doing. So I think the future of what we would want to do is, firstly, like I said, we use existing libraries to create this. We'd probably want to create our own chatbot using sort of a self-attention kind of model, and then we want to gather our own data set to train that ourselves, and that would involve holding more workshops, it would involve online surveys, it would involve gathering all the data, asking the communities these very specific questions that we want our chatbot to do. So and then going through a process with those communities and with all that data of categorizing it and doing it in collaboration with those people, and then giving all of that to our very hyper-specific custom-built chatbot and retraining it from scratch. I think that's like a super long process, and our solar-powered server can't stay on for more than 10 minutes. So like, who knows what it's going to do when we try to give it all that kind of data to train. And there's obviously like workarounds. We get large solar panels, and we can have static solar panels. Like, we specifically got small stuff because we got like batteries that you could, it's powered and uses batteries that you get in like vapes and rechargeable torches for a specific reason. Like, there's lots of ways to like improve the capacity of it that we've like chosen not to do. But I think that would be the future, is to essentially create a more bespoke and more robust version of what we've got that shies away even more from using existing technologies in favour of something that is like specific and to what we want, and really importantly, as small as we can possibly do.
Yeah, no, exactly, because I think one thing that we've tried to focus on using, or rather within our onboarding bot, has been minimizing the use of AI as much as possible. So like Marcus said, part of our future is in a way minimizing the use of LLMs even further by making our own one. And even within our existing bot, for example, we've got another question about green spaces. We ask our users, what kind of green space do you have? And as opposed to using any kind of AI, we've literally just had, we've just used word categorization. So if you say, for example, I've got an indoor terrace, it'll just categorize you using a sort of bag of words model, which is a lot easier to implement. And then it's just a lot more ethical as well.
Thank you, guys. I mean, you guys have really been asking some really, really hard questions and had a very short space of time to try and figure them out. And I know people have probably got a bunch of questions. We don't have time for questions now, but I really encourage everyone to go and see the prototypes and ask these questions. You guys have got so many learnings. Apothecary Network is down in the hallway just before you get to the W spaces, and Crypt Ship is in W1, which is also just down that way. So you can go visit everyone in one. Thank you guys for giving your time and sharing your insights. It's been really cool watching the development of both of these projects, and yeah, really excited that we get to see them in fruition today.